What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be fixing some floppy steering with the Cure. Let me show you what I'm talking about when I talk about floppy steering. It comes down to this little Y link right here. If you look at it, I can rotate it around. The drag link wants to roll back and forth like this when you're driving down the road. And so what that's going to do is while you're driving down the road, you may be holding the steering wheel straight, but all of a sudden it kind of drifts a little bit and you got to compensate, and it drifts a little bit and you got to compensate. It's a 1977 Ford axle, so it's it's lacking on the technology side. I have the Barnes 4-wheel drive 1-ton tie rod kit, the do-it-yourself welding kit. It came with all this stuff. So I've got a misalignment tie rod end here. That's just to keep it from hitting. You can kind of see where the paint's worn, and I've had to repaint it because when I first built this scissor action, when this would go up and flex, they'd hit each other. So I had to gap it out. Barnes actually has this in stock, so it was a simple, easy fix. The problem is with this type of steering is as you're driving down the road, it wants to kind of drift back and forth a little bit, kind of do that Axl Rose sway. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about. So I got to looking on the internet, and RuffStuff actually makes a piece of plastic that is called the Cure. And what it's going to do, it's going to go over the boot between the tie rod and the tie rod mount where it seats into this tie rod. It goes in right there, and it's going to keep this thing from rolling. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep this whole setup from rolling back and forth, because this drag link right here, because as you steer, if it gets a little bit pressure one way or the other on the steering wheel, that right there is moving the steering wheel, you know, this much. So it's drifting down the road, and you hit a bump, it may shift. You hit another bump, it may shift. You hang a left, it may shift. You hang a right, it may shift. So the thing we're looking to do is to take this shift out, and taking that shift out will also take the rotation of this out. And so with this, I'm hoping it will take the steering to a whole new level, because since I fixed the camber last week, it's really it's bald tires, I know, but it's really sensitive on the steering now, but it wants to drift left and right. So I'm constantly making small adjustments, and I'm hoping this takes this to a whole new level to where I can just hold it straight and go. And so after you take the cotter pin out, I am using a 25 millimeter. I think it's a 24. See, it's got a little bit of play, but I'm not real worried about it because I'm not going super tight with it. But we gotta get it loose. And there goes that. And once you get it loose, it comes off quite fairly easy here. Once we get this off, we have to unseat this from in here. And so what we're gonna do is we're again gonna take the castle nut, flip it over upside down, and we're gonna whack this with a hammer, and this just prevents damage to these little castle ends. But you wanna make sure you get enough threads in there to where you don't damage the ends. So if you just put it on 1 or 2 turns and go to whacking it, you could still damage the thread. So you wanna get it to where it's kind of level in here, and you got a little bit of room here. With that, we're gonna take this hammer and give it a... So once you've whacked it, push it back in a little bit, thread the castle nut off. You might do a little bit of damage to the nut banging on it, but it's a lot better than banging up these threads and doing damage to these, because I've learned this lesson by crushing one of these in before, by just doing it and hitting it like this. Hit one the wrong way, it bends in, that castle nut's ruined. And this really is as simple as popping this out. Don't let it fall on you. Popping this little guy right here on right there, sliding it back in, and then putting your castle nut back on. You're gonna wanna tighten your castle nut down as tight as you can. Work your steering wheel back and forth a little bit. You need this tie rod to seat into its housing, into this other tie rod for the Y-link. As you tighten it, you notice this is gonna move, this is gonna move. Everything's gonna get tight into its own place as you tighten this down. And you start to see this move here, pulling everything into place. Now the instructions say, leave the boot on, that way your grease does everything it's supposed to do, stays in place, lubricates. I don't know how that's gonna work in the long run, but it does crush the boot quite a bit, but that's okay, because is doing what it's supposed to do. Now, as you can see, now we're getting to where it's starting to snug up and it's starting to push everything flat. Like this flat right here is gonna be flush with this. The backside flush is gonna be pressing against the ball joint to where it is secured and everything kind of locks in and doesn't wanna do that whole twist jive down and everything. But I wanna make sure I get this sucker really tight so that it seats down just right. Got that all tightened up. I'm gonna put the cotter pin back in. And as you can see, this still holds grease, not a problem, it's still tight. At a glance, this is what the cure cured. Took the TJ out for a romp around the neighborhood, and that little cure did cure it. I'm kind of surprised. So now you lean left, it goes left, lean right, it goes right. Hold it steady, it doesn't drift to where you're constantly fighting it and it feels like you're gonna get squirrely at 70 miles an hour. We'll see what it takes over time. I mean, it could rupture, it could last, who knows. By the instructions they sent, I did everything exactly the way they said. They said it can go over the boot to make sure it's seated, tighten it down really good, crank the wheel a little bit. So if you have a Y-Link or if you are thinking about doing a Barnes 4-wheel drive, do it yourself, tie rod end steering project for the 1-ton GM tie rod ends, only works on the drag link because that drag link locks everything in. If it can't rotate, neither can the tie rods. It's working. We're going to see how long it lasts, and I'll give you an update towards the end of the season or when it fails. And if it fails, we'll report on that too. But anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. I've had a good time sharing this with you. If you're looking into this type of steering project, I would highly suggest getting this just because it's going to take a little bit of that play out. So anyway, you guys have a good one. Thank you for watching. That light's gonna be right in the lens, huh? Keep bumping my light. Hang on, just steering. So what? Ruff Stuff. So at a quick glance, this is basically, not basically, squish the rubber. What is that damn thing called? Boot. It's 1-ton GM. It's GM 1. Good grief.